In this video, we will be going over what I think is the best budget 4K camera for your YouTube or content creation needs. Welcome back everybody, I'm Jake McHugh, and this channel is all about making better videos. I do gear reviews and test videos to help you determine what gear you need to make the videos you want to achieve. If this is something that you may be interested in, consider hitting the subscribe button down below. Before we get into today's video, I have a huge announcement to make. We recently hit 100 subscribers on this channel, and I want to thank each and every one of you who has subscribed and tuned into my videos on a weekly basis. I really love connecting with you guys down in the comments below, and I'm really looking forward to growing this channel even more. So here's to the next 100 or 1,000 or whatever it may be. Let's keep this going, and thank you once again to each and every one of you. The camera that we will be talking about in this video is the Panasonic G85, and this is still a great camera for YouTube in 2020. This camera is about $700 brand new with a kit lens, which is a very good lens, mind you. And when you're shopping used, you can find it anywhere from $500 to $600, but I did recently find one on KEH for only $450, which is an incredible deal if you ask me. So to start, let's go over some specs of this camera. This camera can shoot up to 4K 30 frames per second at 100 megabytes per second, and it does the same specs at 24 frames per second when shooting in 4K as well. And this is all in the H.264 format. When it comes to shooting 1080 or HD, this camera can shoot up to 60 frames per second at 28 megabytes per second or 30 frames per second at 20 megabytes per second. You can shoot at 24 frames per second in HD with this camera, but in order to do so, you have to shoot in the HVCHD recording format. And because of this, I personally tend not to, so I just shoot at 24 frames per second in 4K. Camera rocks a 16 megapixel micro four thirds sensor, which has IBIS, or other known as in-body image stabilization. This is a really nice feature to have when shooting handheld B-roll or when vlogging. Because of the micro four thirds sensor, this camera will have a 2x crop compared to a full frame camera. For example, if you were to shoot at a focal length of 12 millimeters on this camera, it would have the same field of view as 24 millimeters on a full frame camera. Another example of this is that people tend to pick up a 50 millimeter or a nifty 50 prime lens for their camera, and because of the 2x crop, Panasonic's version of the nifty 50 is the 25 millimeter f1.8, and this would give you the full frame view of 50 millimeters. When it comes to the size, shape, and build quality of this camera, this is something I really enjoy a lot about this camera. It's nice and light with the body only weighing about a pound in weight, and it's that perfect in-between size of a DSLR camera and a mirrorless camera like a Sony a6000 series, and it has a really nice beefy build, and it's all weather sealed. I really like the grip on this camera due to the fact that it's a little bit bigger than the Sony a6000 series, and that allows for a bigger battery that has pretty decent battery life for it. And along with that, another thing that I like is that the SD card holder is on the side of the camera here. And this really allows for really easy swapping of cards when you're shooting on a daily basis. It has a really nice, fully articulating 3-inch screen, and it's all touch compatible, which is super nice when adjusting your settings on the fly or when you want to lock your focus in a manual focusing mode. The image on the LCD screen is really nice and clear, and it's super easy to tell if your subject is in focus, and with it being fully articulated, you can flip it around to see if you're in frame. There's a lot of great lens options for this camera with it being the micro four thirds system, and with having that smaller sensor size, you have an endless amount of vintage lenses that you can adapt to this camera as well. The kit lens that comes with this camera is a great all-around lens, and it would be a nice start for vlogging. Some other native lenses that I would recommend for this camera for YouTube or normal video work would be the 12-35 f2.8 from Panasonic, the 25mm f1.8 like I mentioned earlier, and lastly, if you want a very compact light vlogging setup, I recommend this lens right here, which is the 14mm f2.5 pancake lens from Panasonic. When it comes to adaptive lenses, one lens that has grown on me a lot recently when shooting talking heads like this for YouTube has been the Tokina 11-16mm, and I've been throwing that on a speed booster or a focal reducer, and it's been really great. The only downside to this setup is that you will more than likely have to use manual focus due to the fact that autofocus isn't really that great when adapting lenses. I have happened to do some reviews on some of the lenses that I've mentioned, so if you're interested in checking those out, I will link them up in the cards up here and down in the description below. Now let's touch on some things that are not so great about this camera. For starters, while the autofocus is better on this camera compared to the prior models like the G7, it's still nowhere near Panasonic or Canon when in this field. I find that this is a common issue across all Panasonic cameras, and they really struggle a lot in the lower f-stops, but I find that it's more usable and consistent when you're shooting at f2.8 or higher when using autofocus. With having that smaller sensor size of the Micro Four Thirds system, it does struggle a little bit more in lower light, and it does lack that depth of field that you would get from cameras with a bigger sensor. Along with those cons, it is tougher to have a wider shot due to the 2x crop on this camera, and you have to resort to something like a speed booster or a focal reducer like I mentioned earlier. Overall, I do love this camera a lot, and I have a special connection to it due to the fact that it was my first 4K camera that I used for YouTube, and a lot of the fishing videos on my outdoor channel was shot with this exact camera right here before it became my girlfriend's. I think it's really great for the money when you consider all the features and the image quality that you get out of the camera for the price, and having this flip out screen is very huge when shooting YouTube videos like this. So that's going to do it for this video here. I hope you guys enjoyed it and got something out of it. If you like this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button down below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you hit the bell. That way you get notified when I drop future videos just like this one here. And last but not least, I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.